Hi, boys and girls. Today we are moving on from rounding to the nearest 10, and today we are going to round to the nearest 100, okay? So now we have to look for perfect hundreds instead of perfect tens. Let's review what a perfect 10 is. Those are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100, right? So we are going to move on to now understanding what nearest hundred a number is closer to. So here in this chart, we have all the tens from 10 to 1,000. So I have highlighted right here what the perfect hundreds are. So those are 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, and 1000. So instead of our numbers ending with 10, they end with 20 because 100 has 20, right? So let's watch this video to help us understand what rounding to the nearest 100 means.
How can you round numbers to the nearest 100? Check out this movie, Moby. It's about dolphins. About how long is this movie? You can round to the nearest 100. 118 is between 100 and 200, but it's closer to 100. So when you round to the nearest 100, you round down to 100. This movie is about 100 minutes long. When you round to the nearest 100, look at the digit in the tens place to help you decide whether to round up or down. In 329, the digit in the tens place is 2. Since 2 is less than 5, you round down to the nearest 100. So 329 rounds down to 300. Round this number to the nearest 100. Remember, look at the digit in the tens place. Since 7 is greater than 5, you round up to the nearest 100. So 872 rounds up to 900. Now round 254 to the nearest 100. First look at the digit in the tens place. Since it's equal to 5, we round up to the nearest 100. So 254 rounds up to 300. Anyway, Moby, I only have 30 minutes of library time. Which movie can I watch? The movie about coral reefs is only about 20 minutes long. So I can watch that one. You want to learn about coral reefs, Moby?
Okay, now that we've watched that video, let's do some practice together, okay? We are going to round 528 to the nearest 100. So my first job is to think about what two perfect hundreds surround 528. Well, I know the 100 before 528 is 500, and that means that the next 100 is 600. And halfway between 5 and 600 is 550. So now that I have my number line set up, I can put 528 on the number line. So this number line, since it has 10 tick marks, will go up by tens. So if I count from 500 to 600, it will go 500, 510, 520, 530, 540, 550, 560, 570, 580, 590, 600. So I know that 528 is right before 530. So here's 500, 510, 520, 530, so I'm going to put this about right there. Now, if I look at this number line, I can see that 528 rounds down to 500 because it is closer to 500 than it is to 600. So for this example, 528 is between 500 and 600, but closer to 500. Now, boys and girls, now that we have a really great understanding of what the number line looks like to round, I'm going to show you a way to double check your work, okay? And that includes a song. So we are going to listen to this song, and this will help us check our work with rounding. The tune might sound familiar to you. Okay, so that's the song that we will use in order to double check our work. Okay, so if we follow the same steps that the song told us, we are going to start with mark your place, look next door. So I'm going to mark the place. So that means mark the place value that you are rounding to. So that means I'm going to mark the hundreds because I am rounding to the nearest hundreds. And then if I look next door, that actually points to the tens place. You see that? So mark your place, look next door. What's next door? This is what will tell us what to do with our hundreds. So let's move on to the next step. 5 or more, you raise the score. Okay, is 2 5 or more? No. Let's go on to the next one. 4 or less, you let it rest. Is 2 4 or less? It sure is. So that means that my 5 is going to rest, which means it stays the same. Okay, so, and then we will look to the right, put zeros in sight. So that means that the 2 will change to a 0 and the 8 will change to a 0. So following the song, 528 rounds to 500. Is that the same answer that we got above? It sure is. We got 500 as our answer. So that is a way that we can double check our work. Let's do the next one. We are going to round 773 to the nearest 100. My first job is to see what two hundreds 773 is surrounded by. So I know that 773 is close to 770. So if I look right here at 770, the 100 before is 700 and the 100 after is 800. So I'm going to type that in here. It's in between 700 and 800, and halfway between hundreds is 50. So this will be 750, and that's the midway point. Okay, so now let's add 773 to our number line. So I'm going to move that based on where this number is. So I can actually start at 750 and continue counting. So 760, 770, 773 is about right here. Okay, so now I can fill in my sentence frame. 773 is between 700 and 800, but closer to, well, I can see that it's closer to 800, so it's going to round up to 800. Okay, now let's check our work using the song. Okay, here we go. Mark your place. What's our place? What are we rounding to? The nearest hundred. So I'm going to mark the hundredth place because I'm trying to find the nearest hundred. Mark your place. Look next door. What's my neighbor? My neighbor is a 7. Okay, next door there's a 7 in the tens place. Okay, so my job is to see whether that 7 in the tens place is 5 or more or 4 or less. Okay, so mark your place, look next door, 5 or more. Is this 5 or more? It sure is. So we are going to raise the score. So this 7 makes this 107 turn into an 8, okay? And it's not 4 or less, so I'm going to skip that step. Now I'm going to look to the right and put zeros in sight. Look to the right, put zeros in sight. So that means to the right of the hundreds place. So that means at the tens place, that means that the tens place turns into a 0 and the ones place turns into a 0. So that means that this number 773 rounds up to 800. Did I get the same answer? I sure did. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, so I am rounding 181 to the nearest 100. Okay, I know that 181 is very close to 180. So if I look up here, 180 is right there. So the 100 before 180 is 100, and the 100 after is 200. So I'm going to fill that in right here. 100 and 200. I know that halfway between hundreds is a 50, so that means that this is 150, halfway. Okay, I'm going to put 181 onto the number line. So I'm going to start at 150 and continue counting. 160, 170, 180, and it's one more than that, so I'm going to put that right there. Now, I'm going to fill in my sentence frame. 181 is between 100 and 200, but I can see it's closer to 200. So 181 rounds up to 200. Let's check our work using the song that we just learned. Okay, so let's sing it together, guys. Mark the place. Look next door. Oops, I keep moving that. Look next door. Okay, so we marked the hundreds place. That's the place we're rounding to. We look next door. We have an 8 in the 10 spot. And that 8 will tell us what to do with our 100. Okay, if it's 5 or more, we're going to raise the score. If it's 4 or less, we're going to let the 100 rest. Okay, let's sing that song again. 5 or more, you raise the score. Is 8 5 or more? It sure is. So that means that the 100 turns into a 2. We are going to raise the score of the 100 because the 8 is 5 or more. Now we're going to look to the right, put zeros in sight. So it rounds up to 200, which is exactly what we got up here. All right, boys and girls, we are going to practice more with rounding this week, and I cannot wait.